Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
We have so many doctors, so many oncologists especially, they aren't intentionally withholding information, but sometimes they just don't remember to say, like, here's what I think and here's why.
From Offscript Media, I am Matthew Zachary, and this is Out of Patience. On today's show, my friend, colleague, fellow young adult cancer survivor, advocate, speaker, blogger, stage 4 melanoma bald guy, TJ Sharpe. As of today's taping, TJ is about to hug his kids in celebration of his 8-year cancerversary, and, spoiler alert, he's still here, alive, kicking, and staying just angry enough to keep poking a stick at the dumpster fire that is our modern-day healthcare system. You're welcome. TJ's activism has made him one of the dominant voices in clinical trial and immunotherapy awareness for patients and doctors, and I consider his superpower to be translating the jargony BS of patient voice and patient experience and patient centricity into a more digestible narrative that has actually made cancer suck for countless others. So TJ's also a keynote speaker, so we do wade into the waters on the whole pay your fucking patients discussion, as he is often greeted with, "But we don't have a budget to pay you," when asked to share his story for the private sector. Enough of that shit. Pay your patients. Anyway, I digress. Enjoy my conversation with TJ Sharpe. I'm going to start by asking you one question. TJ, why is there no stage 5?
There is a stage 5, but there's no survivors of stage 5. So I don't know why we decided to stop at stage 4.
It's like we go to 10, right? Shouldn't there be stage 1 through 10? It just makes sense to be 1 through 10. Why 4? Who decided 4 is the end of the line?
I don't know. I wish I had an answer to that question, because it gives you a little hope. If you have more stages, you can kind of back down. And it's not just like 1, 2, and 3. There's like 1A, 1B, 2C. And
right.
Why do we have all these subsections? Just like you said, go 1 through 10. It's a pretty easy scale.
I mean, even DEF CON had 5, right? War Games, yeah. DEF CON had... Come on. Like, please, people, let's use pop culture as our basis of survival rates.
You are a pop cultural master over here.
I do what I can. And you're 8 years out. When is your actual 8-year melanoma-versary?
If you want to go the day I was diagnosed, it was the day that my son turned 1 month old, which would be August 12th. So 8 years would be this coming August 12th when I got the official diagnosis that you have stage 4 melanoma and 2 years to live.
It's always like, well, I had 6 months to live, which is way more dramatic, but I think maybe I had a better director organizing and producing my cancer diagnosis. Why 2 years? Seems arbitrary.
It does. It was actually fairly statistically accurate, because had I done the chemotherapy that the first oncologist recommended, the treatment that he should have given me would have been one of the new immunotherapies that have come out, and the whole cancer world knows about immunotherapy now. But if I had done the chemotherapy, the average lifespan was like 18 months. 90% of patients in my situation would have been dead in less than 5 years. So you see those little Kaplan-Meier curves. That's right about 2 years is where you see the big fall off.
No one's ever said Kaplan-Meier on the show, so kudos to you. It's like the Pee Wee Herman special word of the day. It
is, yeah. Everybody go out there and Google Kaplan-Meier curves. You can see where you want to spitball yourself landed if you have a late-stage cancer diagnosis. You're like, you know what? I want to be one of those guys that's really far out to the right. I don't want to be the one on the left. Give me over there.
So you mentioned immunotherapy. 2012 was like the dawn of immunotherapy, wasn't it? Like you had, where were you treated and how did they know? We talk about like, your right to choice and your decisions, and you were given like, oh my God, here's something else that you can do besides the crap that you might die from?
I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am a Northeast guy just like you, but I just decided to beat the rush and get down here to Florida before retirement. So we ended up going over to Moffitt Cancer Center. I have a good friend who did a lot of research for me. If you have a cancer diagnosis, you need to find your ninja, because that's my buddy's nickname is Ninja, and he found me the best doctor. So I ended up going over to Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. It's about 4 hours away, to a really excellent melanoma researcher. And he basically said, look, you have the 2-year thing was fairly accurate for chemotherapy, but he told me there's these immunotherapy drugs that we're trying. Anti-PD-1 drugs, which everyone kind of knows what they are now if you've been involved in cancer at all. And he also said, here's this other immunotherapy. It's a series of immunotherapies. Want to try this?
But did you ask what that meant, or did you just happen to know what that meant?
Oh, I knew enough. I spent 16 days in the hospital when I was first diagnosed. So 16 days in an iPhone, you have lots of time to research cancer treatments.
Right.
So I knew what it meant as much as I could. I got the premise that, hey, look, instead of just trying to carpet bomb everything with chemotherapy, we're going to use your own immune system to fight the cancer inside you. And that's a great idea. Like, the body's a pretty smart thing. We should use what we already have rather than try to kill everything good and bad.
So basically adamantium therapy.
The one that I did was actually it was a T cell therapy that I actually had my own T cells extracted and then put back in me, like the CAR T therapies that are have been improved the last couple of years. So it was very personalized. The personalized medicine thing was like the start of it.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know you were a guinea pig. They say like, oh yeah, you look great, you turned out just fine, but you were on 4 immunotherapies across 2 trials, and that sounds like lots of syllables. But how long did that take, and what was it like?
The first trial took about 5 months. Someone asked me, "Did you have like side effects?" I go, "I don't even know. I was in such bad shape that I don't know what was a side effect from the original surgery. From, I think I told you this before, I had a colostomy bag for 2 years because they found.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, that was a fun thing. It's really good during like Super Bowl because you can just sit there and never have to go to the bathroom. You just sit there. There's all toilet humor we can get into here, which we probably should not. But it was tough, and I was the blog idea was patient 1. I was the first patient to try this series of immunotherapies in a certain sequence. And for me, I don't know, maybe I'm a positive guy sometimes. When the doctor told me that, we haven't actually had someone that's tried this in this series before, my thought was, man, I'm like, hey, that means no one's ever failed this. Let's do this.
Right.
I'm gonna be the first person to do it. And the crazy part is that it's worked well. The trial was small. It was only 18 people, and half of the people got a response. I wasn't one of them. Technically, I failed the trial, but luckily, the anti-PD-1 drugs were getting into their phase 2 trials at that point, and I got on this second trial for what's now Keytruda.
Wow, really genuine. Like we talk about how people don't understand that trials are exactly that. Like this perception that you're kind of a guinea pig lab rat. They're giving you standard of care plus this, and yet were you made aware? Did you understand like this is an odd, like pay it forward strategy that one day you'll do this, and if you do well, other people will at the same time? I
think I got that innately. The ironic part was I actually worked in pharma early in my career as a project manager, and I remember my buddy Eric sat me down and explained to me the whole clinical trial, like what clinical trials are. Here's what clinical research does. And in my mind, I can still to this day remember him explaining to me we have to put all these papers together so we can file them with the FDA. This is dating me and you, but this is before they actually had electronic submissions. So they literally would drive a tractor trailer full of paper down to the FDA that had all their research on it. And when I was in the hospital, I remember Eric telling me all about that. And he said, "Yeah, kid, this is what happens." And so I understood that there was this whole thing, the notion of clinical research. And in my mind, clinical research is something that somebody else did to get drugs approved.
Right, exactly.
It became real once you start saying, all right, you have those 2 years, and if you want to see your children grow up and go to first grade, this is likely your best option, and you're going to be a guinea pig.
Yeah, I found it very self-evident when the pharma commercials, and they stopped using the word cure and they stopped using the word survive better. They said live longer with. And looking back 25 years from when I was diagnosed in the Stone Age of Clinton, like how far we've come where you can now live longer with and not just drop dead from immediately.
Oh, that's a nice thing, right? I mean, and some of us are fortunate that we get to live longer with our disease, and something else will hopefully kill us, in 30 or 40 years. I think that's why you and I are so passionate about what we do, is because that this is not, this isn't just popping a pill and having a cure. For as great as immunotherapies are, they're still, they don't work for more than half the population. And that's just for the ones that they work for. So as amazing as it is, and as much money as it's going to make some of the pharma companies, more people than not are still dying from cancer.
Back with our guest after the break.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
It still bothers me that, you'd think it'd be in all the pharma companies' interest to make sure someone like you or the next you today is fully aware of all these immunotherapies, but there are just so many now. Spoiler alert, you're still here 8 years later, and you're kicking it really well. You've done a lot of work in advocating with pharma. You've done policy work. Have you done an ODAC meeting at the FDA? Have you gotten any drugs approved? Just curious.
I don't think I have. As far as I know, I haven't. So.
Yeah, right. Oops. I accidentally got that drug approved last week. I don't know how.
I've done a little bit in my advocacy, but you and I both realize that this whole advocacy space has a lot of factions to it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't be good at everything. I'm not the kind of advocate that is going to go, march for the cure. You're not going to see me wearing pink ribbons and stuff.
Oh, God.
That's a whole other podcast, I'm sure.
That is oh, God, yeah.
But that's not where I fit. I'm fortunate that I have a voice in the industry. I'm fortunate that I get to affect certain parts of it. My niche has kind of become the clinical research area and getting that patient voice involved. It's not the only thing that I could do, but I can't do everything. And you know how it is. If you try to do everything in the advocacy world, you end up not actually getting anything done.
So what's your bully pulpit? If you had to pick one thing, I like to say, what are you angry about for the right reasons?
Oh, man. That is, because
it's loaded. It's a loaded question.
It is. And I talk a lot. If I had to push something, I would want to change the way that clinical research is discussed about. First, that it's discussed in a diagnosis. I'm obviously a big believer in clinical research, but also I'm more of a believer in these are your options. And if you don't know all your options when you're given a diagnosis, whether it's a terminal, quote, quote, cancer diagnosis, or a rare disease or a chronic disease, if you don't know what your options are, how are you going to make the best decision? So for me, I would want that. I want the doctors and the million health doctors and 2 million nurses out there to say, look, here is what we have for you. Here is the standard of care treatment or treatments. Here is what I can potentially offer you as a clinical trial if they do that. Or here are clinical trials that may be available for you. And now I don't like the cliche of, you be your own boss and own your healthcare, but you kind of are. And that's the point is if I don't know what all my treatments are, I'm not able to make the best decision for me.
This goes back to what you didn't know you needed and what I talked about earlier on the program, which is that there are I remember when the FDA approved, 4 new drugs this year, and 3 years ago, 72 new drugs got passed. And this is 140 new drugs got passed. The burden of that moment of choice is resting on the shoulders of a human being who puts his pants on or her pants on one leg at a time every morning. How do you see the burden to the HCPs to be aware of every possible opportunity to give that patient, that next you, the objectivity to make a better choice?
It's the facilitation. The ironic part, the whole 2-year thing. I would send a Christmas card to that doctor every year, say, "Hey, look, year 5 still here." I did not expect him to know everything, but what I expected him to do was help me make the decision, just like a mortgage broker would, or the guy that cleans our pool, or a lawyer like my wife is. Like, these are professionals, and they're supposed to help you make decisions because they have a body of knowledge that allows them to give you expert advice. I wanted him to give me expert guidance. And that's what I think we are missing the boat on significantly, because being a healthcare professional right now, it's, especially in the environment we are right now, it's tough work. This guy's got a practice to run. He's got a family to feed. He's got his staff to pay. He's got to generate business and bill things. So I don't expect this guy to be the expert on melanoma or some other type of cancer, but I expect him to help me find the answers I need to find as a patient.
Yeah, I mean, you referred to lawyers and pool cleaners. Like, that's almost like the service industry or the retail industry. You've heard me say this countless times, like when you enter the shit happens store of cancer, there's no greeter. But one of the most powerful lines that I was given by my neurosurgeon, because I had like the rarest brain cancer possible when I was 21. And he said, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and it's going to suck for a day or two for you not to know, but I promise you I will get back to you." And I was like, that's a human being acknowledging he doesn't know something. Have you experienced that? Have you seen that level of humility in medicine?
I have. It's not always first person diagnosis. I think I've had a lot of good doctors, and the best example is the oncologist I have now is a wonderful human being. She's a great doctor. She's not a melanoma specialist, and she starts our conversations with, "I'm still learning about this, so I need you to help me." And we do, and we have a really great back and forth. She knows that, I go to ASCO, or when they actually had ASCO, she understands that I get the concept of an educated patient. My second trial, we stopped at just over 4 years and 75 doses. And I asked her, "Well, what do you want to do?" And she said, "Well, let's just go to 5 years." And I just simply said, "Why?" And she goes, "Because that's what we do in breast cancer." And there's that learning that I feel that my oncologist is, because I pushed back on her and I said, "I think 4 years is enough." We got some other opinions, and we all decided to make a decision together. Kind of to answer your question, I feel that we have so many doctors, so many oncologists especially, that are just going by what they may have learned in residency, or they've read in a paper somewhere, and they aren't intentionally withholding information, but sometimes they just don't remember to say, like, "Here's what I think, and here's why." Like that second step, "Here's why, and now let's go from there." Usually it's, "Here's your option."
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to beat up on doctors. I've seen it happen all too often, especially when you're launching like the young adult cancer movement and there are no young adult cancer standards. And it's very easy to say, "I'm 26 and not 80. You should think about that." But truth is, they might think about that. But if not part of a protocol or a guideline or standard of care, they're not trained to automatically look at age first. It's always disease second, because Hippocrates says, "I'm here to cure you and help you the best that I can." Have you seen, I mean, it sounds like you have, a bit of a psychological transformation of the medical community writ large, especially in oncology, where because of immunotherapies and trials and personalized medicine and jargon, they're actually considering the human being themselves first and then what's bugging them second?
I think so, and I'm fortunate. You and I get to do things like ASCO, or I'm very involved with the Melanoma Research Alliance, which excuse me, brings together a lot of good doctors that want to do research. And these researchers are human beings. They do research because at their core they want to help the world be a better place. Jim Allison, who won the Nobel Prize for Science 2 years ago, is sort of led this swell of immunotherapy, and I've gotten to talk to the guy. He's a nice guy. He plays harmonica. He's a great guy, And he just wants to help people. And I see that repeated over and over and over again. Sometimes our healthcare professionals, they're so good at what they do that they kind of forget that humanity part. And that's where I think that we can put the limited amount of resources it's going to cost you to have someone in there that's got some people skills that can help you navigate, like a nurse navigator or someone like that, that takes a little bit of that edge off, because most patients don't go in with the knowledge of their disease and the different options that they have. They're relying on someone. I think of my aunt who's going through a sarcoma battle right now. She just goes and listens and says, all right, we'll do that, because that's what her doctor says. She doesn't question as much, or she questions, and whenever the doctor says, all right, that's my answer, let's keep going. She doesn't have that. I want to kind of shop around. Let me see what else is available. Is there something at Sloan Kettering or Johns Hopkins that Penn might not offer? And that humanity part right there, medicine has gotten to be so, I hate saying scheduled, but it is. You're in there, you're seeing your doctor, and you're out, and they're off to somebody else. And there's almost no time to just pick your head up and say, what am I doing? Where is this going for me as a person? What are my goals? Do I want to live another 10 years? Or in our cases, we were young. My aunt's she's no spring chicken. So
right.
I said, what's your goal, Aunt Lorraine? What's your goal? What do you want to do? Do you want to see your grandkids go to college? It's not just enough to say, I survived cancer. She's at the point of her life where she needs to really state, this is what I want to do. And this is what my treatment goals are.
The word is dignity. I use that word. It's like just a cornerstone word. Like, how do you want to live out the rest of your life? And here's what this looks like, and here's what this looks like. But, you bring up a really important point, which is not everyone's born an advocate. Not everyone has a TJ as their Walmart greeter to help them understand what their choices are. I had an uncle who was a geneticist, and he helped me get through what I did. Well, ultimately didn't do chemotherapy for many, many reasons, but the least of which was, my doctor didn't tell me what the side effects were. My uncle did, and I had him, and that's why I still play piano. We're talking about this idea of, just be your own advocate, like quote unquote. It's not that easy to just be your own advocate, because not everyone is inherently built that way. So you are dependent on the advocacy organizations, if you can find them on Google, and the patient advocate leaders such as yourself and other colleagues that we have. I want to wrap up. This is a way to be continued conversation on your thoughts on, because you've keynoted, you've done lots of panels, you've done ad boards, you write, you're really deep in the thick of the patient jargon, experience jargon. And what are your thoughts? I'm going to die on this hill. Paying your patients to contribute their suffering nonsense so you can make a profit.
Boy, this is a whole other podcast waiting to happen right here.
It is, but tease us, because I want to have you back. We've done so many shows for our listeners. If you go back in the feed, we've done like 5 shows already on pay your fucking patients, and you're right at the forefront of that. And lots of people we interact with in our community that are very up on this. So briefly, what is your take on this? Because you've been doing this for 8 years against your will. You didn't ask for this. You're in the store.
Yeah, I keep forgetting we can curse on this. This is like Sirius XM radio here, so we can just fuck shit.
Whatever the fuck you want. Who gives a shit?
I feel like Will
Ferrell. No one listens anyway, so it's okay.
So here is my take on this. Most patients will probably give you their time and their energy because they're passionate about it, and they will do it for a song. I was like that, and a guy named, I don't know if you remember Jack Whelan. Yeah, sure. Jack was a great patient advocate. And when I was early on in my career, I had done a couple panels. I don't think I'd even keynote at this point. And I met Jack a few times, and he had just done a presentation, and I was talking to him afterwards. And he told me something that I still, to this day, try to repeat to everybody that wants to be a part of this advocacy world. He said, you have value, and don't ever forget that you have value. And they will pay you a fraction of what that value is to them. And it'll feel like the most money that you're ever going to get, because all you're doing is sitting there and talking about being a patient. He goes, but that is valuable. And he goes, and if you sit here and listen and you understand the patient journey besides your own, that brings a significant amount of insight that it would take pharma companies hundreds of thousands of dollars to get in market research. And if you can take that knowledge. So that really drove me to say, look, I know I have value here. I want to be a part of it. I have that passion to be a part of designing clinical trials. A lot of my stuff is in the R&D side. I'm on the clinical side and not the commercial side of pharma. And I'm like, all right, how can I get patients in here? How can I find one of our colleagues and say, hey, they want to have a voice too, and more importantly, convince someone that's writing the check, hey, where's the ROI on this?
Right.
The best answer I ever got to that, because I've asked this through pharma companies, through different service providers. A friend of mine, Anthony Costello, who is a VP at Medidata, he brought a bunch of patients in, and they expect us to ask hard questions. And at the very end of it, I asked him, I said, why are you doing this? What's in it for you? And everyone's got that, what's in it for me? And I said, why are you doing this? Why you're spending a nominal amount of money, but it's someone's budget to bring in 6 patients to have a design session around us with Alicia Staley, our friend Alicia, who's an amazing advocate. Why are you bringing in one of the best cancer advocates to be a part of your team? His answer was really good, and it was really insightful. And I wish I could. I don't want to do it. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm paraphrasing what he said. He goes, you know what? Maybe down the line we'll sell more software, but it's really the right thing to do. We are designing things that are going to affect patients' lives, going to affect the families of patients, and our software, whether we have a patient board or not, it probably won't make a noticeable difference on our bottom line. But if we can make patients' lives better, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And trying to capture that and get that attitude and convince someone who does have to, sign a check to say, this is, this patient experience, this patient advocacy world, putting together an advisory board or paying someone to come in there and give you insights. Maybe it feels weird. Maybe you're worried about compliance, but it is the right thing to do because there is value for you. There is certainly value for us in sharing our experiences. And in the end, the mythical ROI on it is that we're able to give people some compensation for their time, their effort, their passion, their knowledge, their experience, their lived lives, and have that help develop potential healthcare solutions for someone else. Because we want to do that as patients. You and I both are like, I mean, don't tell anybody. We'd probably do this for free if we could.
No. Don't ever say those words.
Okay.
Don't ever say those words. No.
Erase that.
Editor. Look, we can endlessly discuss the philosophies of right thing to do versus appropriate compensation because there's value, and that's the magic word of pharma. But this is a definitely to be continued and an endless recurring theme here on Out of Patience. TJ Sharpe, gentleman, scholar, Renaissance man, melanoma survivor, patient advocate. You could see him pretty much you're like the only TJ Sharpe, SHARPE, I might add, that you can highly Google. Contributes to skincancer.net, novartisoncology.com, and your blog. What's your website for the blog?
tjsharpe.com. Once it actually gets back up and standing, we'll hopefully house the 200 or so posts that chronicle the journey. And one of these days, it'll be a book. It's just, I already have all the material, Matt. I just need to actually put it together.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. More to come, and stay in touch, my friend.
I'll talk to you soon.
That's all for today, folks. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, follow us on social, and tell all your friends to listen. Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is a product of Offscript Media. Our executive producer is Matthew Zachary. Our senior producers are Jen Horangeff and Andrew McDowell. Darren Tunn is our production intern. It is recorded, mixed, and edited by Matthew Zachary. Our theme music is by the Mike Van Allen Quintet and by Mara. For advertising and media inquiries, email media@offscript.com. Hit us up at contact@offscript.com to share comments, feedback, and make guest recommendations. For more information, visit offscript.com.